about you, but when I get sick, like really sick, down with the fever and even the flu kind of sick, the last thing I want to do is leave my bed. Even though the best thing I can do is get myself to the doctor and get some meds, it takes a day or two of feeling really crummy and telling myself over and over again, oh, I'll feel better after one more little nap. And after a few days of being in bed, some meds and liquids and sleep, I slowly emerge as a new human. And when I do, I take a look around the mess that I have made in my inability to do anything. And with the first good wave of energy, I take a shower, assess the damage, and get to cleaning, washing, and disinfecting, and opening the windows and getting some fresh air in the house. Illness and being flat on your back for a week has a way of reminding me that I value a clean house, and I might even enjoy cleaning some. It also reminds me that I need people, that those that I have been isolated from have been missed. And when the healing comes, when we get back to it, we are quick to help those who are also sick, because we know what it's like to be laid up, to be flat on our back and isolated from others. Today in our gospel reading, we have the story about Simon's mother-in-law. We do not know her name, only that she is ill, and Simon and Andrew have asked Jesus to come and heal her at their home. And what I find so unique about this story is that Simon and Andrew have recently met Jesus. This is the beginning of their friendship, the start of their journey together. And in the newness of their relationship, they're not afraid or weary of burdening Jesus with their request to come and help. How many of us, when we are in a new friendship or relationship, we're hesitant to burden others with our needs? We say things like, I don't want to bother them. I barely know them. What would they think of me being all needy? I don't want them to think that I'm always going to be a burden. I have said these things to myself at some point over the years, especially at times when I was really in need. Simon and Andrew pushed this socially awkward barrier that we have in place today and asked Jesus to help Simon's mother-in-law. They haven't known Jesus long, but they are quick to take their troubles to him. Our gospel reading today is the story right after last week's, where Jesus healed a man in the temple who was possessed by demons. And from there, Jesus finds himself in the home of Simon and Andrew, where Simon's mother-in-law is with fever and in bed. Jesus touches her, and she immediately is better, so much so that she jumps out of bed and begins to serve them, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. This is not like what I imagine motherhood is, and your children are hoping you get better so you can make them dinner, or take them to karate, or drive them to a friend's house. This is not that kind of healing where Jesus, Simon, Andrew, and the others were just gathered there needing her to be better to make them dinner. This was the kind of back to it that comes over you when you are tired of being in bed, feeling crummy, and just happy to be among the living again. It doesn't take long for others in need of healing in the city to gather outside their house. The street was full of people who had heard about Simon's mother-in-law, and I'm sure the news had traveled fast about the man in the temple from earlier in the day. So there Jesus was in the third place for the day, in the street, healing people, making people whole again. People who made their way before Jesus, carrying their own brokenness, asking Jesus to make them whole again. It is in our vulnerability that we find connection and healing, just as those afflicted found restoration in Jesus' presence. Jesus and his healing and desire to make people whole is not relegated to the temple or a house or the street. In each instant Jesus encounters a man, he went to the woman in the house, and people came to him gathered in the street. It doesn't require being at the right place or the right time. Jesus' healing is for all people, not just the people who receive that healing, but those that are also in relationship with them. I believe Jesus' desire is to put people back into right relationship with one another. This weekend, I had the chance to visit and share meals with people I hadn't seen, in some cases for years. And it was there, gathered around those tables with him, that we were putting back into right relationship with one another. It was there around those tables where we were reminded how far we had come, how much we had grown and healed in our years together. It is in the ordinary parts of our lives that Jesus wants to make us whole again. There's nothing really extraordinary about this gospel story today. There's no great big miracle that happens. No one has come back from the dead. No waters have been parted. No great ark was built. Simon's mother-in-law was sick and in bed, and Jesus shows up, and she was made well. It's a small gesture. Some might say it's quite ordinary. It's here in the ordinary and the going and comings of life that Jesus is interested in making us whole again. With this ordinary act of Jesus, he begins to reveal for us the divine that is present when this healing and restoration occurs. Their home is transformed into a sacred place, and we are encouraged to recognize this reality in our everyday, in our own homes and workplace and relationships, the mundane becoming extraordinary when we open our hearts to the possibility of encountering God in unexpected places. I believe this is at the heart of our gospel reading today. Jesus' desire to put all of us back in right relationship with one another and with him. It's easy for us to think that Jesus is not interested in our relationship troubles with our family and friends, neighbors, with those we work with and those we no longer speak to. It's easy for us to think we don't need to bother Jesus with the small things that burden us. Jesus, of course, has bigger, more important, pressing issues. This is not a priority for him. It turns out this is not true. Jesus cares deeply that Simon's mother-in-law is able to be back in right relationship with her family. He cares so much so that he goes to their house to pay her a visit. He cares because we are better when we are whole. Then we are able to go about the ordinary parts of our life. When we have a clear head about our relationships with one another, we're able to function without the ever-constant nagging ache in our heart and minds, wondering. I wonder what it would be like for us to be like Simon and Andrew and to push through awkward social barriers about not wanting to be a burden and just go for it. Ask Jesus to come into our broken relationships in your life and begin to heal them. The funny thing about Jesus is sometimes the ways in which he goes about healing and making us whole might not be the outcome we were asking or hoping for. I wonder what it would be like for us to be like Simon's mother-in-law and admit defeat and get ourselves to a doctor sooner rather than later. And at first sign of healing, we get back to it, back to those relationships, serving one another. I wonder what it would be like for us to be like James and John, those two hanging out in the house of Simon and Andrew, witnessing these acts of the divine, and this ordinary home become a sacred space. They had just left a sacred space earlier in the day when they were there with Jesus witnessing another healing. What would it be like for us to be on the lookout everywhere we go? I don't know about you, but when things in life get crazy, when the wheels are about to come off or already have come off, the first thing I do is I neglect my friendships and my relationships with my family. I cancel on them, or I never make plans in the first place because I know they will understand. Relationships can sometimes take a back seat to the demands of our busy and hard lives, and this passage serves as a gentle reminder that true wholeness is not achieved in isolation, but in the wholeness of meaningful relationships. The only way to get to wholeness is through Jesus, through inviting Jesus into our lives and into our relationships, inviting Jesus into making our lives and our relationships whole again. May we be bold in our request. May we, in our wholeness and newfound healing, find ourselves back to it, back among the living, back to our ordinary lives that Jesus has called us to. And may our eyes be ever widening to the divine, breaking in to our everyday lives. Amen.